Fundamental rights are a group of rights recognized by the Constitution of India as basic human rights essential for every citizen to live a life of dignity and respect. They are enshrined in Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, that's Articles 12 to 35, and are justiciable, meaning they can be enforced by the courts. Key characteristics of fundamental rights include the fact that they are justiciable, which means citizens can move the Supreme Court or High Courts directly if their fundamental rights are violated. However, they are not absolute and are subject to reasonable restrictions imposed by the state. These restrictions are often in the interest of public order, morality, health, or the security of the state. Also, these rights are primarily enforceable against the state, meaning the state cannot make laws that violate these rights. But some rights are also enforceable against private individuals. For example, the prohibition of untouchability. Fundamental rights can be amended by the Parliament through a constitutional amendment, but such amendments must not violate the basic structure of the Constitution, as established in the Kesavananda Bharati case. Most fundamental rights can be suspended during a national emergency under Article 352, except for the rights guaranteed under Article 20, which is protection in respect of conviction for offences, and Article 21, which is protection of life and personal liberty. The Indian Constitution broadly classifies fundamental rights into 6 categories. The first is the right to equality, covered under Articles 14 to 18. Article 14 guarantees equality before law and equal protection of laws. Article 15 prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Article 16 ensures equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 17 abolishes untouchability. And finally, Article 18 abolishes titles, except for military and academic distinctions. The right to freedom, covered under Articles 19 to 22, is, one of the core pillars of our Constitution. Article 19 guarantees 6 essential rights: freedom of speech and expression, freedom to assemble peacefully and without arms, freedom to form associations or unions or cooperative societies, freedom to move freely throughout the territory of India, freedom to reside and settle in any part of the country, and freedom to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade, or business. Article 20 offers protection in respect of conviction for offenses. So, this means, there can be no ex post facto law, no double jeopardy, and no self-incrimination. Article 21 is about the protection of life and personal liberty. This is actually a very broad article, and over time, the judiciary has interpreted it to include various rights like the right to privacy, the right to live with dignity, and even the right to a clean environment. Article 21A, which was inserted by the 86th Amendment Act in 2002, makes elementary education a fundamental right for children between 6 and 14 years of age. And finally, Article 22 provides protection against arrest and detention in certain cases. It ensures, for example, the rights of an arrested person, like the right to be informed of the grounds of arrest, the right to consult a legal practitioner, and the right to be produced before a magistrate within 24 hours. The right against exploitation, as enshrined in Articles 23 and 24, is fundamental. Article 23 prohibits traffic in human beings and forced labor. Article 24 prohibits the employment of children in factories and other hazardous occupations. Specifically, it bars the employment of children below the age of 14 years in such work. Moving on, the right to freedom of religion, covered by Articles 25 to 28, ensures freedom of conscience and the free profession, practice, and propagation of religion under Article 25. Article 26 grants the freedom to manage religious affairs, while Article 27 protects your freedom regarding payment of taxes for the promotion of any particular religion. Article 28 guarantees freedom as to attendance at religious instruction or religious worship in certain educational institutions. Next, we have the cultural and educational rights under Articles 29 and 30. Article 29 is about protecting the interests of minorities, giving them the right to conserve their distinct language, script, or culture. Article 30 allows minorities to establish and administer their own educational institutions. The right to constitutional remedies, found in Article 32, is really crucial. Article 32 provides remedies for the enforcement of rights conferred by this part of the Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar even called this article the heart and soul of the Constitution, since it gives citizens the right to move the Supreme Court directly for the enforcement of their fundamental rights. Both the Supreme Court and High Courts under Article 226 can issue various writs for the enforcement of these rights. For example, habeas corpus is used to produce a person who is illegally detained. Mandamus is a command to a public official or body to perform a duty. Prohibition prevents a lower court or tribunal from exceeding its jurisdiction. Certiorari is meant to quash an order passed by a lower court or tribunal that acted without jurisdiction or in violation of natural justice. And finally, quo warranto is used to inquire into the legality of a claim by a person to a public office. The significance of fundamental rights is immense. They are the pillars of democracy, absolutely essential for the flourishing of a democratic society, ensuring individual liberty and promoting social justice. Fundamental rights serve as a check on arbitrary power, acting as a limitation on the power of the government and preventing it from becoming authoritarian. They also offer crucial protection to minority groups, shielding them from the tyranny of the majority. While these rights are primarily political in nature, their proper implementation can really lay the foundation for social and economic justice. At their core, they are fundamental to ensuring human dignity and the all-round development of every individual. Of course, there are some limitations and challenges. The idea of reasonable restrictions can sometimes be interpreted a bit broadly, which may lead to curtailment of rights. Another significant limitation is the suspension of most rights during a national emergency. When it comes to enforcement, there are some real issues to consider. Even though these rights are justiciable, delays in the judicial process and a lack of awareness among people can make their effective enforcement difficult. The scope of interpretation by the judiciary is always evolving, which leads to new dimensions and sometimes debates. In conclusion, fundamental rights are truly a cornerstone of the Indian Constitution. They guarantee essential freedoms and protections to citizens and serve as a vital bulwark against state overreach.